Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Albert. Hi, Paul. Just want to make sure that you guys can hear me and we can hear you too.
How are you doing?
Amazing, amazing. June is normally tends to be a good month, I think, for all of us, especially for you, Maria, being a property manager. I believe you might be kind of excited for the season, for the a lot of check-ins going on up there. A lot of work, most probably, but it's definitely rewarding in a way.
Yeah.
And I had a quick question for all of you guys. I believe pricing is something really important for all. It does affect obviously our revenue and many of other parts of our business. I wanted to know a little bit in detail what is the price for you, if you could define it in one sentence somehow. For Maria first, if you prefer.
What is price? Price price is really tough to get right. Price is very variable. It depends very much on many factors, and I think that's what makes it very complicated. But price is key. If you don't get the right pricing, there's really
Mhm.
there's no success, or there's no like road to move forward. So it's definitely a key aspect.
You definitely cannot go with your goals and your targets and KPIs will be a bit established. Albert, Paul, do you have anything that you want to say about pricing? What is something for you?
No, pricing is the drive. It's what drives the business. That's basically it for me.
Totally, totally. And one of the key over before we move on and start a little bit with the process, or give some time for people to join in and come on board. Um, what is the main goal that you believe for the guests will be for today's? So what should we be getting from today's meeting today? Albert, do you have something that you want to share?
Yeah, maybe the pricing is complex, but it's a very interesting one.
Totally. Yeah, there is a big position for that for revenue managers that obviously is a specific position on the market. And we all know the importance of pricing and how hard it is to find the right tackle. Today, we're going to go a bit more in detail with the great board that we have today. So this is the great people. We have a really diverse ecosystem of people in here, and I believe each of us will apply or try to bring a bit more insights of what we believe to be the right tools to find the best pricing. Before, when we were just having a quick conversation, we saw that it's not as easy and it's not as expected as we thought. So, Paul, if you want to give us a quick introduction about you.
Yes, I work at Rental Ninja. We are, along with Albert and others in the team, working on the tech side. Um, and basically, what the focus is in regards to pricing for our job is to have as many options open as possible for our customers, um, so that they can choose their best way to approach their customers.
Great, amazing. So something to have options is always a good way. Albert, if you could give us a quick introduction also.
As Paul said, we are in the dark side of Rental Ninja, so working to make this possible.
Someone that you might haven't seen yet, Albert, is the master between many of the supports that we have been generating, and he's always here to assist us. And it's great to have him on board, obviously, Paul, too, to get more in detail on specific approach and something a bit more technical. And obviously, most of you will already know Maria, but if she has any time to give a quick description, in this case, we all know property managers busy like Maria, we will kind of know a bit more in detail. But
Yeah. Well, for me it's very important to have an acknowledged team, not only in the vacation rental industry, but also in like the numbers, the logic that falls behind everything that needs to happen. So we are very well accompanied here with the staff, that well, the people, the team that we have at Rental Ninja.
thank you, Maria. That's great. And before we move on, I seen my partner has already put a poll for us. Just we're kind of even. So how many people have been already set up their prices manually? It's been 35. Now it's just being changed. Now more people have been using a revenue manager system, so it's kind of a bit more automate. And we're gonna review what are the different takeovers for each of these different methods. Obviously, each method have their own pros and cons, and we will review this. So before we go a bit more in detail. We're gonna have a quick agenda just to know a bit more about the basics, situational wise, to know a bit what is the takeovers that we believe to be from small guidance that we have, and obviously what is the different formulas, right? So we know that it's not used to find the right price and the occupancy, but it's just about to find the sweet spot. Sweet spot meaning the most optimal part. Sometimes we believe to be the ecosystem where price and demand are exactly on the break even, but this is a bit different in this case. And obviously in the field, we will review what's the different status with manual, seasonal, smart, obviously our revenue management system, and what are key points and what is the comparison that we will be doing between pros and cons of each of the different methods. So from here, I will lead the path to Maria to give us a bit more insights about what were the things that she found out once started working with pricing and what was the results she had.
Yeah, thank you, Jean. So I'm really willing to share here some of the mistakes, confusions, and doubts, or maybe concerns, challenges that I faced. Some of the problems I faced was to define the pricing adequately, understanding the unit to be rented as a whole independently from the number of people that would be staying in every booking, instead of maybe charging for a minimum guest count price and then adding extra guest prices. That was one challenge for me to understand if it was good for me or maybe was, let's say, negatively affecting our occupancy, bringing down the volume of bookings, because in the end it's what do we want to do, no? Another challenge that I face is to come down to the conclusion whether charging the cleaning amount inside with the rental price is beneficial to get more bookings, or if it doesn't make a difference if you put it aside and it's listed on the booking breakdown. Some other problems that I face, or challenges that took us a while to understand, were also the seasonality, the fluctuation between when everybody wants to travel and when nobody wants to travel, deciding if your property is one of those that you want to close during low season, or you want to drop prices maybe a little bit, or what would be the financial strategy, pricing strategy, in order to make that low season still profitable. And those are mainly the biggest challenges that I've faced in regards to pricing.
Yeah, as we say, pricing is really diverse topic, and it does affect with a lot of things that we even tend to go over. So I know that we have already some specific takeovers, things that we have taken into account. We want to make long story short somehow for people to give them a bit more in detail. Could you please give us maybe some of the guidelines, something that you believe to be the most important, even though each case and each scenario is really different, but just to kind of give people one statement or fact in this case?
For me, is that it all comes down at the end of the year. When you close the period, it comes down to the return that you make, the revenue that you're actually getting out of it. It doesn't matter if one booking you're selling it very cheap. Individually speaking, what counts is the overall within a given period. And sometimes we get drawn by the individual factors when they are the most irrelevant ones. So we need to kind of like thicken our skin, individually speaking, and maybe look at it from the bigger picture a little more. And then it always turns out to be beneficial.
Totally. Yeah, it tends to say we do have a lot of expressions for that, but we tend to see the tree and not the forest. So I think that's kind of on the idea. We try to go a bit more in the volume and not only for specific bookings. So that's a pretty good statement. And obviously, uh, regarding a bit more of the balance, right, and revenue, which are the main goals, the target and the KPIs. And that's why it's important to have a dashboard with the different KPIs and metrics to be able to accelerate and to review this, right? I know now is time for Albert or Paul, whoever believed to be the most accurate with this. For myself, it was something easy, right? When we all will think about revenue, about prices times quantity, times occupancy, obviously, but there is some specific things that might be a bit different. So if you want to clarify that or give us a bit more insights.
Well, I want to actually take it a step backwards a little bit, because what I think that people really need to understand is the not facts or takeaways, but really understand what they're fighting against, and understand the basis of prices. So let me take a little step back. Maria mentioned that she had some struggles when deciding what strategy to put on when it comes to pricing, embedding cleaning fees inside, taking, I don't know, extra nights, extra guest price into account. So let me say something before that. You really need to understand what your market is, what your different markets are, maybe. Uh, are your properties located in a high seasonality region? Are they in a city where seasons don't really matter that much? Do you have a high occupancy type of listing, or do you have a type of listing that will mostly be filled on the weekends? And if that is the case, um, what kind of seasons do you have? And then basically, when you understand all of this, you have to look for simplicity when it comes to pricing. And what do I mean by simplicity? Okay, so basically, simplicity means uh, you need to think about your listing as rented out once in the year, I would say, not 17 or 18 or 40 times a year, right? That's how you want to look at your listing. Basically, what I mean is, okay, my listing is generating, I don't know, not 200 euros per booking, but rather 12,000 per year. Okay, when you take that into account, it's much simpler to think about where you want to go and what you can do to increase your revenue, right? That's very important. So that's something that you have to have in mind. You need perspective. You need to get away a little bit, and that allows you to focus on revenue and finding the right balance between the price per night and occupancy, which is the graph we're showing, which has a really big effect. Basically, if you have a very low price, you're probably going to have a 100% occupancy, right? If you just rent it out at €1 per night, but that's not going to yield a lot of revenue. As you increase prices, the normal effect, and that's the laws of general economics, occupancy, or you will sell less nights, right? Having a very high price is also quite bad, because you'll basically feel no nights at all, right?
Mhm.
So basically, finding this right balance in between occupancy and pricing is the fit, is the good fit. What do customers see? Another thing you have to keep in mind is what you are offering your rental at and what your customers are seeing the property at. What do you mean? What do I mean by that? If I offer my listing at 80, but I offer my listing at 80 for two guests, and my property allows for six, and I charge X of extra customer 30, what my pricing strategy is telling the customer is that it's not accurate with the listing, right? So basically, what I mean by that is that if you have 100% base rate plus the customer, depending on if they come two or three, four persons are going to pay 200, just price the property at 160 and do not charge extra. Okay, because you'll feel the same. You'll feel the occupancy will be higher, your returns will be higher, and the customers will know what to expect, right? So that can only drive revenue up.
And
That's
transparency with the guests, right? If you allow me to say.
Well, hidden fees and charges, what they have is that they're not actually hidden, because they see it beforehand, but they change your perspective on it. You think that you're making 150 or 100, but the customer is seeing 210 from the base, and that tends to not feel uh, the customer you're looking for is not finding a fit, right? If you're having a property that can host six people, just offer it at a price that is appealing for six people, which is probably higher than appealing for two people. So you'll make more revenue, and they will not get surprises, right?
And that doesn't mean that people looking for an apartment just for two people, they will not no longer find your six people property listed, right? It doesn't mean that they're not going to see it on the search list.
No, it's just gonna have a little higher high point. But your target audience is 4 or 5 or 6 people, not two, right? Which allows you to charge more. But
Yeah.
what happens is that if you have a listing for 4, 5, 6 people and you rent it out for two but charge more for the rest, what you're losing out is opportunity to rent it more times at 4 or 5 people at a higher price. So set your base price higher, right? That's for that target, and do not charge extra. That's my gut feeling. That's my gut feeling. Of course, when it comes to pricing, opinions are as
Diverse.
many
As many situations as there can be worldwide, which is absolutely
yes.
everything.
And if we go forward a little bit, this chart, which is maybe it's very clear, but it sometimes confuses on the expected outcomes. This other graph is very important. People tend to do what the last two rows do, right? So you set a higher price, but you don't fill the listing, right? So if you take a look, let's take a look. If I set my price at 140 euros per night, that will mean that I have 16, 17 nights empty. That's just an example, right? But this is what usually people do. It means that I will have 16 or 17 nights empty, which will mean that I make around 1,800 a month. But counterintuitively, if you just this is not linear. What this chart shows you is that revenue and occupancy, of course, they have a relation to each other, but the outcome, the monthly outcome that you can take out is very, very counterintuitive. Renting out just 2 days more yields a lot more for you, even if it's a lower price. This occupancy is key when it comes to revenue, right? Because you don't think about it. Okay, I only have 2 or 3 days empty a month. Well, or a week, sorry. This means that you skipped out on roughly 1 month or 1 month and a half in a year, which is massive. Month and a half in a year. All right. So um, keep out, I think, the perfect target. And again, this goes back to where you're located, if it's a city, if it's seasonal. But whenever you can rent it, you need to look for an occupancy that is between 80 and 90%. Okay, what people are willing to pay to fill your listing at an 80 or 90%, this is the perfect fit for you for those dates. That's the perfect fit. All right. A lower occupancy means that you're losing a lot of money, right? And a higher occupancy means that you need to increase your price.
Mhm.
That's also key.
And that's
Right?
something really visual that we have seen before, as you were saying on the graph. So trying to find that this balance where you can maximize revenue, not only to satisfy the demand, but also being able to have that, I think that will be key, right? And also, as you explained before, and you definitely show us an example, which I believe for most of us will be really beneficial. Seeing it with numbers, seeing it with different, we tend to see it every day. People tend to have this view, right? And then just showing this clarity, I think is something important in terms of knowledge, right? Price, as we already know, price is really difficult to set as there is a lot of factors. These are some of them only. In terms of base price, weekend price, seasonality, last minute discounts or promotions that you want to do, or far out prices, but also these other factors that also include, right, as minimum stays, extra guest price. And also one quick note, I see that someone has already put a poll in here, what is asking if do you think it will be easier to optimize your results having an extra guest price, as Maria was suggesting, and also Paul, right, I was saying before recently, it's really important to define who is your public, who is the person that you want to reach, to make the specific prices for these people. Maybe your property is listed for 6 people, and this is the maximized potential that we want to go for. So we should be targeting these clients instead of the other ones, right? So that's something really, really important. And then there is another one, if you use any markups for any of the OTAs. Not sure if you have seen this one, and if you could use reply, as we know that using cost of markups is a pretty intense question, and we might cover it at the very end of the webinar today. Mhm. Great.
So we'll see. So here for the pricing, pricing factors. I think it's essential because at the end of the day, there's so much that can be a variable when it comes to pricing, but there's so little that actually makes like a big difference or helps you like get the right strategy put up. The ones that we've got listed here to me are really the ones that made the biggest difference. Me, again, speaking as a property manager in this case, being able to work on your base price, if you know your market very well, if you've already got like a lot of history behind you and you know what you can reach and what your limitations are, then maybe you can play out with your base price. Again, weekend pricing is something that you may know, but if you're new to a certain market or you're adding a new property to your portfolio, or maybe it's not so easy for you to define in whichever scenario you may be, those are still things that can be put in a way on pilot, so it's the same technology behind it that will be defining which are the prices with each one of those factors, depending on the demand, offer, and the seasonality at this time of the year. However, for the other factors here, like the fees included and excluded and the extra guest pricings, these are things that, regardless of the pricing strategy that you work with, you will still be able to define and be the one to put the rules for those ones. So, but I think that either Paul or Albert can give us like a lot more the technical view side of things in this regard.
And it's true that we have to leverage between all of these factors. Not all of them are as important. We're going to cover very soon right now. We're going to see how we can put them in practice, especially in Rental Ninja, as you already know, and you users, most of you from the platform. We will be seeing what are the different 3 methods that we will be using in terms of managing the pricing and making sure that you have everything covered in terms of pricing. I will ask Maria here to help us a little bit to know which specific types will be fitting for each specific type of client and what they should be leveraging or what are the different takeovers for each of them really quick.
So really talking about what like the solutions or the ways of working that we provide or offer in Rental Ninja, we mainly focus in 3 of them. We understand there's these 3 ways to work. One, which is maybe the most old school, but at the same time, the one that you can apply regardless of the pricing strategy you have. You can ultimately apply it to override nightly prices, regardless of the pricing methodology you're using. So manual pricing normally is more for those people that tend to have like a flat rate throughout the year, or there's very little variation in pricing. Then we have another, this system, of course, gives you full control, full access to your pricing, full control. Nothing changes until you come back and change it. And of course, it gives you the precision to apply whatever you want. And there's no ulterior, let's say, authority that is defining on those prices. You can manually update them on a daily basis, whatever you want to do, but everything is manual. Then the second system that we really play with are the season pricings. This pricing method is something that is very well used for all these regions that tend to have a fluctuation in regards to the demand, the offer, and again, the weather, which is typically a key factor here. And this will definitely allow you to decide everything you want to do, when each season starts and finishes, what's the minimum stay for each one of them. If there's an extra guest price that you want to charge in that particular season, you can define a price. You can even define which days of the week need to apply for each one of the seasons. Maybe you have one same season, but you want to apply 2 different pricings for weekdays, weekend days. So you can define all that. Everything is manually. It's like a setup that you do. And then the system will be doing the changes on your daily prices according to the structure that you have defined yourself, right? So it's automated according to the rules that you've set up. This one, of course, it gives you so much flexibility as well, but there's some dynamism inside. There's some automation based on what you've chosen. On top of this, you're saving so much time because you're putting automation again, but you can still override your own prices using the manual pricing once again. And then the third and most advanced pricing model that we are working with right now is the actual smart pricing. This pricing is a system to kind of like when you hire an external company to handle your revenue management is the same thing. I'm pretty sure most of the people here attending this webinar already know about dynamic pricing intelligence and so forth. So we've implemented the tool inside Rental Ninja, so you can basically delegate all these decisions based on data, market picture, information, and so forth to do the job for you. But still, even though you're automating the pricing here, it still gives you a lot of margin to define some key factors that can be the minimum stay, for instance. It can also be the base price. We know that to price any vacation rental or season rental, the first thing you need to define is a base price, right? What's going to be your nightly base price? So you can rely on the smart pricing to define your base price, which will also fluctuate according to the demand, the offer, and the seasonality itself. Or you can not trust the algorithm in this sense and define your own base price for this. And then the rest of the automation algorithms are going to work around the base price that you define. And then, of course, you can also define extra guest prices for the rules which are applied for given periods that you are the one to define. So even though the smart pricing decides that low season needs to be sold for $45 or euro a night, if you define an extra guest price for a specific period that this 45 night euro falls into, it will still apply that extra guest price that you request, or will also respect the minimum stay that you define.
That's a
For
pretty good
that.
definition, Maria. And if you allow me, most of the clients just tend to say that it's really easy and simple and flexible to adapt and put in practice, right? For every specific market, especially if you have historical data or if you're working new with Rental Ninja, this will be a good tool. And as soon as you were kind of
Yeah.
going a bit more in detail, I kind of remember most of the feedback from the clients, telling how easy and how simple things work with this, right? With this system. All
Yeah,
of them are very
what's
nice.
particularly helping us so much is
Yeah.
also filling like the little gaps that are left in between reservations. I used to do a pretty bad job at this when I was doing this manually. And that's one of the things that I'm realizing is working so much better now. Like I barely have gaps.
That's great. I mean, that's just part of the first thing is knowing where you have small things to improve, and obviously tools like this will obviously help to perform a bit better, to optimize and to get your KPIs.
Mhm.
We're gonna go a bit more in detail. I think Albert, that's for you. In terms of for seasonality for specific markets, right? What will be kind of a tendency? What should people expect a little bit?
In this slide, we wanted to show what we take into account to calculate the base price.
Hmm.
We fetch data all over the market, the competitors, the area where you are working on. We analyze also the rental, the capacity, how many rooms you have, bathroom, the location, if it's near the beach, if it's farther.
Yeah.
And with all of this, also take into account the future availability you have and the past bookings. With all of this, we calculate the optimal base rate. And then, as Maria said, we apply a strategy over the base rate to adapt the price over the weekend, the weekdays, the seasonality, the summer, winter, special holidays. And then we'll supply last minute discounts to maximize the short-term availability and the financial strategy.
Great. And as far as I know, there is 40 factors that differentiate the price. So going, obviously, they do leverage and they do have a lot of tendency, but so you know, the system has a lot of information, and we send, I believe it's one time a day, and we take all the information. So I think Albert can guide us maybe if there is anything that I'm saying wrong, but I think that there is a lot of information that we take into account with creating events, and it's definitely hard, right? If you're in your market and but you don't control which ones are the events. Obviously, we all know the World Mobile Congress, or if you work in Marseille or in different departments, we all know kind of the specifics, but maybe some specific concerts or anything, any type of event that we don't have in control, the system I was just talking with Albert before, and it takes into account, right?
Exactly. We're analyzing the market and local events and everything, and when we detect any change, we update the prices.
That's kind of something that we cannot be more happy than us using this, obviously, right? In terms of putting it in practice, if you kind of, or if you want even to give us a quick guideline in each of the specific points or different seasonal or manual or smart pricing tools. Paul, if you want to give us a quick introduction, if you don't mind, because we're going to go later into the comparison and see a bit more the pros and cons, but it will be great to know about a bit more in this case.
Yes, basically, manual is 100% manual. You just set a daily price, and we take your defaults that you have, which is basically in this case fees and extra guest price. If you have manual, that's the only thing we can take into account because you have to find a manual rate. And then for the season pricing, you have more flexibility. That is in case that you have different but very well defined seasons throughout the year and you know very well your market. You can use season pricing. Season pricing in our case works as a tree shape, which means that you can have seasons that overwrite other seasons that overwrite other seasons. So you can have, for example, a base season, and in between a little bit from some days a season that takes preference, but in case nothing's there, the outer season still takes precedence, and then inside again, etc., etc. So it's quite granular. It's good for you, but of course you have to be on top of it. That's something to keep in mind. And then we have the smart pricing, which is pretty straightforward. You just get a base rate that we tell you to put or that you put custom, and we take care of it. However, you can still have manual rates on top of smart rates and season both. And you can also have seasons that define rules on those smart rates. For example, extra guest price or check-in and check-out rules, availability related to rules such as I want people to just check in on Mondays, for example, something like that.
That's true.
That's basically our options, which I think do not leave anything out.
Great. And one of the points that you wanted to refer before was the FARAD. I remember we were talking before, such a client were having a 2-year reservation for the future. And we tend to give you the opportunity to modify what is going to be the specific price for the future to ensure that the price in the future will be what you want and what you expect, as we cannot control prices for 2 years. And going a bit more in detail, going a bit more, so people can have a bit more introduction of and maybe a quick review. I know summaries are hard to do, but in this case, to know what are the pros and cons for each of the different pricing methods and what are the things that they have to take into account whenever choosing one of them. If you don't mind, Paul, I think will be a good question for you, or if you want to share it with Maria.
I can go. Yes. Well, of course, manual gives you the maximum control, but you have to be on top of it. What do you mean on top of it? On top of it means not only putting prices, but keeping track of what your fellow neighbors are doing, right? What's going on in your city? What are people having issues from other countries when coming into yours? What's their economy like? Is there concerts around, stuff like that? That's something important because again, you're looking always for an occupancy in between 80 and 90% if possible. That's maximum revenue. 80 and 90% when it's your your season, right? Even if it's middle season, you're looking for that. If you're not in those ranges, you're missing out. You're missing out. You're missing money on the table. Go ahead, Maria.
So I wanted to say, actually, one of the things that I struggled more with was checking the, like, you're 4 days in advance from the weekend and you see you still have 3 apartments empty. So you need to start putting up last minute discounts and things like that manually. So you need to always keep very close the close availability to you to book out those days, because there's no like security thing that will lower your prices at a like certain days in advance to make sure that you book those days out. So it needs to be you behind the screen checking the availability, if there were requests or not. If there's no request, maybe you're way too high on pricing. So how much should I drop my prices to get bookings for this weekend? And it's this whole process that you need to do and takes so much time if you want to fill in the let's say the gaps for last minute reservations and things like that. That's definitely something that when working with manual pricing, it takes up a lot of time.
Nonetheless, we have options to even if not using smart pricing, we have options to set automatic rules for last minute discounts. You have the options inside Rental Ninja to set last minute discounts that apply for whatever rules you have defined. For example, if the apartment's not filled 5 days in advance, at a 15% discount, that's something you can do. Also, I would suggest if you're using manual pricing, always enable the optimize minimum stay occupancy gaps, which allows you to open days in case.
Yeah, I think you had a quick change of the sound, maybe with the.
Yeah, I don't know why, but can you hear me well still?
Yeah, we can. No, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. That's something very important. You have an absolute minimum stay and then a seasonal minimum stay. Optimize minimum stay gap allows you to shorten your minimum stay until the absolute minimum stay for gaps, right? That's important. And for seasons, well, um, it's quite efficient if you know your market very well. The seasonal pricing, you can always override with manual, but again, you need to be on track. You need to update it not only year over year, but performance over performance on your own listing. What do I mean by that? If I'm 3 months in advance, I have seasonal pricing, and I have a 65% occupancy rate, and I'm still 3 months away from those bookings, I need to increase those prices, and that is quite some work for you to be on top of it. Um, so it requires a thoughtful process of setup and follow up. And then maybe you lose opportunities on weekends, events, special events, something like that, that you may be missing out. And then smart pricing is of course a great option, but we understand it's something that we really understand. People are afraid of losing control sometimes, or not having transparency where the data comes from or how trustful it is it. However, it's worth noting that smart pricing does evolve over time. So, what do I mean by that? If you do not lose control, maybe the first booking you'll get 15% cheaper. That 15%, although it's painful the first time, it's very well paid on the long term. Why? Because we're improving occupancy, and the system is learning how to charge more on customers, right?
Yeah.
It's
That
something.
resonates in me. That was me. Like the first bookings I started getting with smart pricing, I was like freaking out. I was like, no, it did not get the prices right. It does. It's just that it starts. It's like if you're a good property manager and you have an owner, a prospect that comes to you and says, how much can I expect for you to make out of this property? You always go like, I'll start renting out cheaper. So I get bookings in, you get reservations and things move on. It's exactly the same logic at the end of the day. It's just that we need to that was my lesson.
Mhm.
We need to let the machine work. And then
But
it
but
gets,
not only does it offer at low price, because it doesn't. It already knows how much it can make on the general scope. That means, if I rent it 20% more expensive, I will still maintain occupancy or not. I need to increase occupancy to increase revenue. The final goal of the smart pricing is to get you more money. That's the ultimate goal. So even if sometimes it looks like something is offered cheap or expensive, it has a reason behind it, right? And it will adapt, because if it's a high price but you're getting closer, it will lower it. And then if you book it, it will increase again. So the next time, it depends. It really depends. There's a lot of thought behind the process.
That's totally. Thanks for all that great work on in trying to
Sorry, one last thing.
Yes,
For very, very small markets, I know the fear that,
of course.
smart pricing needs data. And for very, very small markets, I am in the middle of an island in where there's only one hotel. Maybe that is not the best fit. But for 99% of the rest of the world, it is a good fit because there's a lot of data, there's lots of hotels, there's lots of stuff that we can compare and get very insightful information on your pricing.
And if you happen to be the person that has that property isolated in the middle of the nowhere, we can still help you set up your prices with the season pricing instead of smart pricing. Always happy to help.
There you go, Maria. Great. That's totally what I wanted to hear because we do have an option tailored for each of the different members as we cover in today, not only by the type of client, but also the region and also the specific requirements that they might have. I think I have everything pretty clear. Not sure if you guys want to do a quick summary about pricing, about things that what you want to refer to. That will be kind of a good wrap up if you believe to be, and then we can go to the questions, obviously. But Albert, if you have to say something about what we have covered today, what will be the takeover? What is something that you take from today's?
I think we have reviewed the key concepts, and I hope everybody can apply them to their market.
Great. Paul,
Nothing to add, really.
Maria,
That's what.
Not from my side either. All
great.
good.
I think as we were saying, right, price is something really hard to take into account. There is a specific position for us, the revenue managers, and it does take a lot of time and effort to kind of know what is on the market, what is the different tools, and how to define the specific main price. And as we were covering at the beginning, right, that ideal point, and that's something that we help you and assist you to find out, right. In terms of questions, so I know that we had already some of the questions aligned. Let me just kind of cover some of the pools before. So in terms of gonna do some statistics in terms, we have 60% of our attendees today that they're currently using a channel manager, 20% that they have manual base prices, and some of them that they will want to use a tool but they haven't not yet. So those ones can reach out to us. We will be happy to help you and assist you a little bit to customize and tailor your prices. In terms of the second question, which is the markup on the OTAs. So this means that 80% of the people have a different OTA markup. I think, Paul, do you want to say something about that? I'm not sure if you have any insights on the market of using markups regarding with different prices and different OTAs. Do you recommend this?
The same as always. Know your market well. If you're using smart pricing, let the system work. What do I mean by that? The pricing that you see is not the same as the pricing that the customer sees. These affects your perception and their perception. So I suggest covering markups, because covering markups, what do I mean by that? 0% markup, because that will mean the price will increase by default. So it will be covered, and you will have the same feeling as your customer and still get the same amount of money.
That's a very good point that you say because that's a statement, right? Most of us tend to see our lives in a way of property managers and not the way of the guest. So having that change of perception will help us a little bit and guide us maybe a bit more. And in terms of what is stopping you of using a dynamic pricing tool, there is only a couple per persons that were saying that pricing might be something that is in their concerns whenever they will be wanted to select a pricing method. We're happy to say that we have one of the most competitive prices on the market for that. So that's something good to hear, at least for now. And obviously, some of the concerns of losing control, as Maria saying, I think nothing else to apply on that. So I think that was a quick wrap up. I'm not sure if you guys want to add anything and say anything else.
Just one lesson that I learned from Paul earlier today, and that I can't recall him mentioning it. If you do want to start working in season pricing or smart pricing anyway like that, it's good to set yourself time frames of, for example, 3 weeks, 16 to 18 days to then analyze, rather than doing booking by booking, week by week, comparing. Now, give it some time, make yourself this, let's say, financial season schedule in your mind, 8 or 20 times throughout the year of periods of 18, 16 days every time, that is a lot more accurate than going booking by booking, week by week, or even month by month.
Mhm. That's a good point. I have heard about that, and also by Paul. So I'm definitely suggesting to have a look about that thesis. So that's a good statement. Also, to maybe not sure if you have anything else, Paul, Albert, that you want to do as a closer. Nothing for now, Paul. Great.
I'll
Thanks.
say dare to try.
Amazing. Yeah. So I think most of the questions we have already replied, but if we haven't done yet, please send us an email. We will obviously send you all the resume of maybe the presentation and the video of the today's meeting, so everyone will have access to this and you can review it together. Other than that, just book a quick meeting with us. We will be able to tailor Maria or I or whoever might be on the call. We'll definitely be happy to assist you and please you with some insights of the market and help you a bit more. So other than that, just thank you, Albert, Paul, Maria, for your time, effort, for the great content, which I think is definitely worth for not only for us, but also for the great people that is out there that will be looking this video.
Thank you so much, John.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So talk to you really soon and see you on the next webinar. When is going to be next webinar?
I think it is, what is it, on the 10th?
So, yeah, I think it's going to be on Tuesday 10th at
Yeah.
4 p.m. So we're going to be still debating a bit more. We have a bit more webinars to go. So excited
I think
for the
we're covering, out of memory, I think we're doing like additional services,
exactly.
upsales, how to improve the guest experience while at the same time boosting your revenue maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
So that one looks exciting.
Indeed, totally. So we're happy, actually, Maria, you're going to be there too. So it's definitely going to be something that we want to look a bit more into it. Mhm.
Sounds
Great,
good.
great, lovely. Thank you, guys. Talk to you really soon, and we'll post you for the next one.
How guys? Bye.
Ciao for now.